Now let me get rid of that existing code. You find a snapshot of the code we wrote thus far attached to the last lecture. And let me write some new code. An important thing you work with, or important data structure you work with in JavaScript, are objects. You could have something like the person object, and you create an object typically with curly braces. And then in there you have key value pairs. You define the key by simply typing, well, whichever key you want to use, let's say name. Then you have a colon, and you must have that colon. And after the colon, you have your value. In my case, a string max. And then with a comma, you can add another key value pair, age 29. Now this is an object, and I can log person here. If I now execute play.js, we see that object being printed here. Now, objects allow us to group data together. You can also not just have variables in there, so to say, but you can also have functions in there. For example, a greet function, and there you can simply have an anonymous arrow function, or an arrow function in general, as a value after the colon. And then in there, you could have console log, hi, I am, and then the name, and this would now be accessed with the this keyword. Instead of an object, you have to use this to typically, and there is something special about this, which I showed in that video I linked before in an earlier lecture, but typically this refers to the surrounding object. And now we can use the dot notation, so dot, to access properties or methods, so variables or functions inside of that object. So we could now use this name. And now I can use that person and call greet with the dot notation and executing it as a function. So the dot notation is important on this, which refers to the object, or on you, referring to that object which is stored in this constant here. And now if I execute this again, I'm saying, hey, I'm undefined. Now why is that? Well, the reason for that indeed is what I taught you about arrow functions. This now, here, refers to the global scope, to the global node runtime scope, and not to this object. To have it refer to that, we either have to use the old school function, like this. Now if I repeat that, I'm saying, hey, I'm Max. Or we use a slightly different approach or syntax here in an object, and that is you don't use an arrow function, but you use greet like that. So you omit the colon, add the parentheses after the key name, and then without a function keyword or anything like that, you add your function body. And now this is a method of this object, and you see, hi, I'm Max2 now. So this is something important, and this is the syntax you'll see me use throughout this course, without the colon, parentheses right after the key, and then the function body.